So, what's the role of altered states of consciousness when it comes to our own healing and unlearning? The role of visionary plants, psychedelic plants, and plants that alter the way we perceive ourselves as infinite beings, as non-local beings, and the way we perceive the universe, the planet, and other people around us is very, very important. Sometimes we need something to break down the ego, something to put the, as we mentioned before, the analytical mind of the ego in the back seat. There are certain practices we can explore to help us do this, and a lot of these practices have potential positives or negatives, or like sometimes these experiences, these unveilings, can be full on. And I think that in our modern culture, people are becoming, as we mentioned earlier, hyper attached to the idea of scientific verification for everything. Dylan Moran is a great Irish comedian. I saw him do a show in London on YouTube, and he, at some point, he randomly asked the crowd, "How many of you people here?" This is a big crowd. "How many of you people here believe in organized religion?" And the crowd's pretty silent. It's like, okay, how many of you people don't believe in organized religion? And everyone's like, yeah! He's like, see, you people believe in nothing. And he's like, I believe in nothing. And he's cleverly, in a funny way, pointing out that we live in this culture where believing in nothing, this intense kind of almost atheist point of view, that is pushed in society at the moment is to not believe in anything. And you get these people like, I don't believe in anything. Like, what does that really mean? It means you don't believe in yourself, you don't believe in your abilities, you don't believe in your innate sense of magic. The human condition is possibilities and infinite and beautiful and mysterious. And these people are like, oh, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in nothing. I don't believe in something unless I can see it on a spreadsheet that's been read by a doctor. And it's just very limiting. So believing is amazing. And some people who get into this non-belief, this ego, this masculine way of thinking, and it's important to point out that this masculine way of thinking isn't just men. There is definitely a collapse of the masculine as well in society, where women are subconsciously stepping into masculine roles as single parents and through different situations and becoming more masculine and blaming men for not being the men they need. And so energetically they're becoming masculine and feminine women. And this really messes up people's sexual polarity in the sense that we get a lot of women who are in a lot of masculine energy, and if you're a masculine guy and you want to have sexual polarity and attraction and intimacy, you want someone who's in their femininity. But then you have a lot of these women who are in their masculinity, so there's no sexual polarity, there's no magnetic pull. And it's really interesting. So believing in something and having doorways open to your reality can really sometimes only happen for people in altered states of consciousness. And these people who don't believe in anything are not going to sit down and meditate and try and find the answer, or start going to yoga or doing qigong or doing these things by themselves, or go on a vision quest. Sometimes the best way for people who don't believe in anything is to be shocked into believing in possibilities. And I do think that the best method for this, for a lot of people, is ayahuasca. there's a lot of information out there about ayahuasca. Again, it's one of those sorts of things you can choose your agenda and then find arguments for or against. Or you can just be open to the fact that these plants, for one, are infinite in their ability to show us non-local possibilities, forwards, backwards in times, different places, spaces, dimensions, teachings about other plants. You're literally communing with the spirit of the plant as well. And this is a very highly aware consciousness that can literally teach us and help us. So ayahuasca is almost like a shock therapy for these people who are not believing in anything. It can show them a whole lot of other abilities. And same with smoking DMT or experiencing heightened states of DMT. Our body makes a huge amount of DMT in our lungs and in our pineal gland. So when you do something like a darkness retreat, you start to produce more and more DMT because the chemistry in our pineal gland starts to switch. And without the UV light going through our optic nerve to our pineal, where our pineal drinks the UV and it's the precursor for serotonin, melatonin, DMT. Something else happens when we take away the UV. So in a darkness retreat where you're exposed to no light, after a week you start to produce a lot of DMT and you will see and experience things in a very, very different way. However, ayahuasca is a combination of two plants that statistically it's impossible to work out how to brew these two plants together. These are both plants from the Amazon basin. Chacruna, the leaf with the DMT, and ayahuasca, the vine. Ayahuasca is a MAO inhibitor, the vine, that allows DMT to not be metabolized in the stomach and to pass into the bloodstream and through the blood-brain barrier. Ayahuasca is going to open you up and show you yourself in a very confronting way. The ego can be put aside or shocked aside, perhaps, and ayahuasca, the experience, is very sensitive to the intention of the participant. You will get what you want, or you will be shown what you ought to be shown. And if you are not in a really pure state, you might be shown things that you might not be pleasant to. So what you are shown, it's important to take these lessons on board and let them go. And this is that process that we go through with ceremony, with exploration of the self and exploration of our illusion. We are shown the lack of separation. Like I had an experience in a ceremony where I was looking at a plant across the room, and somewhere during that experience I realized I wasn't looking at the plant. My consciousness wasn't in my body looking at the plant. My consciousness wasn't in the plant. It wasn't in the space between the plant and me. My consciousness was occupying all of these. I was the plant looking back at me, and I was me looking at the plant, and I was all the pervading all the space. So I couldn't actually tell the difference between me and the plant. And that's all verifiable through any kind of inquiry into physics, this innate sense of oneness. The deeper you go with any kind of scientific or spiritual inquiry, you're eventually always going to come back to the fact that we are one with everything, one with each other, one with nature. However, that's an example of a spiritual verification. And you can have this spiritual verification, and this is the amazing reality of the shaman. The shaman is someone who is bridging the two worlds. This world we live in here, where it's very tangible and structured, where time and space are things we use and put into our language to try and make things make sense to us in the way we communicate. The shaman is bridging this world and the other worlds, traversing the different dimensions and realities, independent of time and space, and translating these realities back to us and showing these realities to us, and also facilitating other people to begin surfing through these different dimensions and different teachings and learnings. So much of what the shaman is doing is almost not so much verbal communication, which is also possible, but to through his or her own example, their state of being, and being around these sorts of people who are highly initiated in these multidimensional travels, being around that sort of person, just being around their energy will shift your consciousness. Sometimes being around the right teacher will alter your state of consciousness to higher octaves, and sometimes that can be temporary. So in a sense, this can be a temporary suspension of disbelief. So these people who don't believe in anything, in the right situation, if they're shown something magic, or they experience a magic feeling or a magic situation, or they see something magic, they will experience a temporary suspension in their own disbelief. And it's usually temporary because they'll step back into their mainstream lifestyle where people around them and media around them and everything will project back to them that they are not magic, they are not infinite, and they are separated from everyone. So the idea of temporary suspension of disbelief comes from an idea called the Geller effect. And the Geller effect took place, it began happening in the 70s when Uri Geller, the famous spoonbender and psychic out of Israel, traveled to the United States and went on TV shows internationally, but mostly in the United States, bending spoons, mind reading, this sort of thing. And young children would see him doing these magic things on the television, like bending a spoon, shake a spoon a little bit, or, it bends. And usually before the age of 7, you'll see something and it can give you permission to just do it, because your doubt, the way we doubt reality, hasn't been so heavily instilled onto someone who's that age, and they are more able to tap into their human potential. So a young child would see Uri Geller on television bending the spoon, and they'll pop into the kitchen, grab a spoon and just bend it. So they're experiencing their own temporary suspension and disbelief, and then enough people around them or at school might tell them that they can't bend the spoon, and they might lose the ability. Again, temporary. So there's so many people projecting on us what we can't do, and it's important in our own day-to-day life and in our own growth is to be aware of our socializing and who we're hanging out with, because as we begin to grow and we reach higher octave levels of consciousness, people around us, if people around us are used to staying in lower octave levels, and there's nothing wrong with either octave level of awareness, everyone is at the right place for them. So people will try and pull you back down. Like, let's say you're with a group of people and you all take heroin all the time, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to quit and I'm going to start going to yoga. There is going to be resistance in your social group because they will feel threatened by your higher state of growth. So sometimes we need to be aware that we can't take our loved ones and friends with us as we wake up, and we have to shed those ties. There's no point pushing someone else to wake up with us, because often this will create a lot of resistance. It's like deeply encouraging a cigarette smoker to quit smoking. It doesn't work like that. So it's also important to be aware that not to pull people down, to encourage people to grow. If someone's stepping up and they're dealing with their stuff and they're going deep into their vulnerability and they're working on themselves and working on their past and working on their pain, to encourage them and to love them through it. Everyone is waking up at the right moment for them. All of these different levels of waking up are all okay. And it's important to realize that people close to us, particularly our parents, to be aware that if someone is very set in their ways, especially in self-victimization and disbelief in their abilities, they might not ever wake up in this lifetime. And we just need to have compassion and love for these people and to accept them the way they are. Be very careful of that. Let people wake up at their own pace and offer opportunities and offer teachings when they're wanted. Otherwise, just leave it. Yeah.